my fourth principle talks about having unshakable faith. And there's so much power behind faith, even saying like, um, walk by faith, not by sight. Practice what you need to practice early and often before you need that thing that you're practicing over and over and over again.
Hey there, it's Ryan Hodge, broker of record at the realty firm in London, Ontario, Canada, host of the Rise Up podcast. And I've been fortunate to connect with all sorts of people that want to bring value to your business, whether you're in real estate or beyond. And we have a high focus and mindset, personal development, and absolutely bringing the best version of you into each and every experience. And today, I am so excited to welcome Clifford Starks to our show, who's going to bring you some tremendous value in terms of his rise up into the UFC as a professional MMA fighter, and how he's taken so many principles, so many things from his own journey, and it's led him to be a transformational coach, and he's doing a whole bunch of things in the real estate industry. So Clifford, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. Excited to be on with you.
Well, it's an honor to have you here, and I certainly want to, dive right in. I mean, let's hear a little bit more about you. I'm sure that there are a number of people that are fans of mixed martial arts, and certainly where that's been over the last little while. And I mean, every weekend there, I think there's a pay-per-view these days. But let's look at the dynamic of where did you get started in terms of your own journey that led you to becoming a mixed martial arts artist.
Yeah, so I had 4 or actually 3 major occurrences happen back to back to back that really were pivotal moments in my life. And the first one, I was a 4-year-old kid, and I remember my dad driving away, like he drove away, and I call him my biological dad because I do have 2 dads. And in my mind, it was like, okay, the people who are supposed to love you and care for you can just leave. So get prepared, because the world's not easy. And that's what I kind of ran with. And then my grandfather had passed away when I was 5. And that it shook the heck out of me. And it didn't shake me so much that I had lost my grandfather, because I wouldn't say that it wasn't that we weren't close, but we weren't so close where I was freaking out about the connection with him. I was more freaked out about my own mortality and knowing that I was going to die one day. One day I would not be moving and I would be in a casket. And it shook the heck out of me. And it kind of, I know everyone's been through this feeling before where they're there, but they're not really there. They feel numb inside. And that's the feeling I had. And I didn't know this at the time, but I had coached myself through that process. And I said, all right, I get an opportunity. Either I can sit here and freak out for the rest of my life, or I can live all out. And that's what I really focused on doing, is living all out, like experiencing as much life as I could. And then when I was 6, my mom actually remarried. And it wasn't at 6 where I really understood who he was and how he stood for character, but it was the process of him being there for me no matter what. One man can leave you and they're supposed to be there for you, and another man can come and take his place, and he chose to be there. He didn't have to be there. And it was a real pivotal part for my character, standing up and standing strong for people, because I know the feeling of not having people there for you, and I know the feeling of having people there for you. And so that's really what started me off of my journey. And I just went through my transformation, and I continued to grow from there.
I want to ask you this, and this is a personal question, because I didn't grow up with a father, around me, and that's, a whole other story. But what I do know, and what I'm certain of, and with many of the people that I've worked with or many of the people that I've studied as far as human behavior goes, abandonment is such a big deal to really do some work through. And I mean, I just got off actually watching one of the largest real estate teams in the world, and the team leader said that it wasn't until just 4 or 5 years ago that he had to do that deep dive and really dig into abandonment and those early childhood years and how that impacted you. I mean, when I listen to your story, as far as that kind of the dark to light part of it, that happened at a very early age, where your biological father exits, a new father figure enters. That's a lot to deal with at a young age, and go through that, or realizing that, then that will create a lot of momentum. There's some serious contrast there, but the expansion, I'm sure, starts to take off when you realize it that young, because most people
Yeah.
don't.
True. Yeah, that's very true. I look at my journey, and I had a certain level of awareness at a young age, and I didn't realize that I had an awareness that others didn't really have.
Mm.
And I do go as far as saying everyone has different skills and abilities. Like, some people can jump higher, some people can run faster, some people can lift more.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing what your skills are, and using those to your advantage for yourself and for the people that you work with, is a game changer. It's an absolute game changer. And so the saying, it takes with great power comes great responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really, really big on that, and saying, like, okay, if I can use my awareness to help people get through their roadblocks. And I didn't even realize this was something that I was capable of doing until I started practicing it more.
Mm-hmm. And so that's a gift that's instilled in you, as a child. Take me inside of, and I think a lot of people don't really recognize or really understand, the discipline, the commitment with martial arts and things like that. We see it, but what got you into that? Where did you start in that part of your path? And, what was the reasoning that you entered into, I would think, some form of martial arts to begin?
Yeah. So I was an overweight kid, and I ended up losing the weight, and it felt so good. Like, it was a struggle just like anything. But when I got there and when I figured it out, it felt amazing.
Mm.
I'm like, I want other people to feel this feeling that I'm feeling. And not only that, I got into sports. So I got into sports in high school, and I was a wrestler, a shot putter, and a football player. I got really, really good at those three sports. So I was a All-American on my football team. I was a state champion in the shot put, and a state champion in wrestling too.
Wow.
And going through that transition, and going into I went to Mesa Community for a couple of years, and then I transitioned to ASU. And I went into ASU, and I walked under the wrestling team, and I got tossed around like a kid. Like, I just got tossed around all over the freaking mat. And I remember saying, like, man, I was a state champion. And one of the guys looks at me and he goes, "We're all state champions here." I'm like, holy crap, I'm in a different game.
Yeah.
And I had an opportunity to say, am I gonna walk away, or am I gonna stay in it? And I stayed in it. And I stayed in it because I had certain things instilled in me at a young age. Like, my mom instilled being consistent about things, because you would learn what you needed to learn along the journey. And so that's what I end up doing. I just stay really consistent at the things that I try until I've absolutely given my all, and it's time to walk away.
Mm.
It's time to try something new. And so I'm like, all right, let me see what I got. And so for 3 months, I was getting tossed around. And it literally, there was like a transition, like a shift within that 3 months. And I just got a lot better, got a whole lot better. And some people would say, like, did it happen because one day you just did it. Like, no, it was that 3 months of getting tossed around and readjusting and figuring it out and learning along the way, and just really doing it with a passion, doing it at your best. And if you just give your best, like, life will give you what you give it every single time. I always say, if you give to life, life will give back to you. And so going from that, transitioning to that into personal training, I trained women, and it was complex to say the least, because there's a different mindset. There's not mindset, there's a different way of thinking. The masculine and the feminine, and I know I am generalizing, but there's gonna be a different way of thinking, generally speaking. And so going through that, helping them on their journey was an absolute eye opener for me. I talk about being aware. Well, I'm also aware enough to know that I can't possibly be the most aware person. Like, I know I only have the perception that I have, and I can always learn from somebody else, no matter what age they are, no matter who they are, no matter where they come from. I can learn something, either what to do or what not to do. And the transition into fighting was, the itch doesn't go away. Like, if I could give anything, the itch never goes away. And so if you're ready to make the jump, if you're ready to make the leap, go all in on the leap, because you can't stop yourself. If it wasn't fighting, it would have been something else. I like to compete. And I thought, what is one of the most competitive things that I can get into to test myself in an extreme way and really, like, feel it? And so I thought about MMA fighting. I was right, by the way. That was terrifying.
I've got a cousin, and he's a big dude. He was the toughest guy
Yeah.
I've ever known when I was a kid, and he was I think brown or black belt in judo. He was
Nice.
a Pan Am Games, like candidate wrestler. Won all sorts of wrestling. He was a scrapper, like tough dude. He trained with guys like Sick Shamrock and Dan Severn, and some of those older guys. But he said when he looked at going into the UFC, it's a whole different ball game as far as mentality. And to hear, somebody like that, and he's a prison guard now, and I mean, in a
Yeah.
tough spot where they call him and sort things out, so to speak. But to
Yeah.
hear that, you go, wow, like another level. So, we've talked a little bit about fear when you were younger, but when you look at the dynamic of the fear, where you're going to go in and get involved with that kind of combat, how do you get to that point where you're like, let's go?
Man, so greatness within. I mean, the only way I could describe it is I can't. Because you go to this state of knowing who the fuck you are.
Mm.
You just know who you are. You're meant to express yourself. And I think going back to that 5-year-old kid who was scared and who was numb and who was freaked out, and saying, I'm going to express myself anyway, because that's all I get.
Mm.
That's all I get. And so I've been stretching it and growing it. And so I look back to that kid and I thank that kid, because he reminds me to always stretch myself, to see how far my character can stretch too. It would be easy to back away and not fight. And your friend's right. There's tiers to that game. And in the beginning, everyone can talk a big game. Everyone talks, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to be amazing. And then the contract comes. And some
Mm.
people sign it and some people don't. And then even when they sign it, some people still back out. And then it gets deeper and more dangerous. You go with bigger guys and badder guys, and people who can really hurt you. And then you get to see, who are you? Who are you going to be today? And what I love is the opportunity to test who I am, to see how far I can go.
Mm-hmm.
Just one, for my experience, and two, for other people's experience.
So good. you're, talking about kind of coming up in the ranks, and as you know, real estate is very much the same. This all applies. The principles apply 100%, because number one, you're always going to be able to learn something. You're always going to be able to evolve. And I can almost guarantee that you're never going to be the most successful person in the room. And so when you look to get into, different rooms with different people that will support in real estate business or entrepreneurship or digital marketing, you've got to drop your ego somewhere.
Yeah.
What I'm curious about, because we, high performers, so to speak, tend to be criticized for, cocky versus confident.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the point in professional fighting that, that changes? Because I would think that, when you go into, a cage with some of the baddest people on the planet, you have to have a level of confidence. Or is it actual cockiness? Like, what is that mindset that you tap into to go to that level in that arena?
That's such an amazing question, because it's such a multifaceted answer. Like, everyone's on different parts of their journey. So if you took someone who just couldn't be touched, right? I'll use myself as an example. I had a cocky moment. Mine was in high school. People couldn't touch me. They just couldn't touch me. I was on another level. And I finally got pinned, and it got real, where it's like, you can always be touched. You can always be touched. The question is when you're going to be touched. And so there's going to be guys in the UFC who are super talented.
Yeah.
And it's like, the world can't touch them. You can't touch me. But we look at a great like Muhammad Ali. What a special individual. And he was a man who took responsibility on everything, on everything. It's always on him. And I don't remember which boxer said it, but he's like, "I'm so sorry that happened to you, Muhammad." And he was shaking and trembling. And Muhammad Ali said, "Don't be sorry for me. I'm great forever." And so the answer is, it really depends. Some people are going to stay cocky until the world shuts them down, and we're all going to get shut down, because just like my grandfather was in that casket, everyone's going to go in their casket eventually. But the question is, who are you going to be when you go into the casket? How are you going to show up? And so I show up as humbly as I can, in the best way that I can. And I'm sure I have cocky moments just like anybody. And it's important for me to reflect and do the best that I can under the circumstances. And some may show up extremely cocky. Me being cocky towards the cocky doesn't help anything. All I can do is humbly come to them, ask them questions, and see if they'll actually drop their guard. Because the truth is, cockiness is still that scared little kid, thinking they have to prove just how much better and badder they are than everybody else.
When you examine the dynamic of what's going on in the sport today, and I see lots of people, so many different professional athletes that, reach these high levels, and then they lead into, the transformational side of things, helping people transform their lives or businesses. Was that a natural progression for you?
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
No.
It wasn't. I will say that it feels like it is, but I'll give an example. We get through the shit that we have to push through, right? And we end up pushing through it, and we get to where we need to go. And then we go like, yeah, it was always that way. But if you look back at it, it's never that way, like ever. The first time I went against wrestlers who could actually wrestle, I got tossed around like a kid. The first time I went against boxers who could actually box, I looked like a kid. Like I thought boxing was, oh yeah, two guys hitting each other, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, true.
No, it was one guy hitting a lot of air, and that was me, and me getting hit repeatedly. And then he comes, he's
Wow.
like, man, you hit hard. I hit you in the chest one time. Like I
Yeah.
literally hit him in the chest once. And he's telling me how hard I hit. I'm like, I guess I can take that as a compliment. And I bring this up because even as I'm going through my entrepreneurial journey, I'm starting to learn it and develop it and sharpen it.
Mhm.
But it's always, the beginning's always harder than we thought it was going to be. And sometimes people don't like hearing that. But the truth is, new things are hard. Our mind is not hardwired to just adapt like that. And so we have to go through a process and know there's something at the other end. And when we get to the other end, that's when it starts getting easy. Like then it's like, oh yeah, it was always like you just got to believe. And it's easy to be the person who's gotten through it and say, yeah, you just have to believe. But the people who are just now going through it, that's not an easy road to push through. It's not.
There's a couple analogies in terms of the sport that I'd like to see how you relate. Toughest loss you ever took? Toughest loss that you ever took?
Ed Herman all day long. I was beating the crap out of him, and I made one bad error, and it cost me the match.
Okay. How do you rebound from that? Because in my understanding with professional fighters is that there is so much training that goes into the match. I mean, it's all in the preparation, the discipline, the commitment to get to that point. And then you can have a match that's 3 minutes or less or 5 minutes or less, and when you lose, that's a lot harder to take than going to a listing appointment as a real estate agent, or going to a sales meeting trying to secure a contract and hey, you don't get that one. I mean, the build up for you is so massive, and what I'm curious about is how do you rebound from that? Like, where does your mind go for that?
Yeah, so there's my fourth principle talks about having unshakable faith. And there's so much power behind faith, even saying like walk by faith, not by sight. Practice what you need to practice early and often before you need that thing that you're practicing over and over and over again. So I practice being grateful for things, and I get very specific on what I'm practicing on. I'm grateful to have my children. I'm grateful they're alive. I'm grateful they're breathing. I'm grateful I'm alive. I'm grateful my wife's alive. I'm grateful we can see. I'm grateful we're able to breathe the air, however specific I need to get. And if it gets really, really bad, like a loss, especially in live TV, what's one good thing you got going for you? Just start with one. Don't even try and make it more complicated than it has to be. Just take a breath and say, I'm breathing air. And if I'm breathing air, that means I can do something. And if I can do something, that means I can be better than I was before. And I kind of create a domino effect with that. Because our mind, it goes off of what we focus on and what we tolerate. And if we tolerate being a loser, we will be a loser. If we focus on being a loser, we will be a loser. But if we focus on winning and we focus on, okay, what do I want to become? Who do I want to become? What do I need to focus on to become that? And then you just start growing into what you need to grow into.
There's a great book called Psycho-Cybernetics, and it's
Amazing read. Yeah.
Amazing. And it's so much about, self-image. And I think that that's what you talk to right there is, what is my self-image and really what is my identity? And I saw a great video the other night. Big Jack guy, he coaches in the real estate business, and he's very, very consistent, disciplined. He's one of the best that I've seen that way. But he talked to, everybody always asks, how does he stay that consistent? I mean, even with, COVID and, everything else, everybody's going through this big, giant collective experience, but as individuals, I can safely say I haven't been quite as consistent as I'd like to be, but he really, really hit it home on you line up with your consistency with the identity. Who are you going to be? And I think that it's bridging some of those gaps, that it's not really complex work, but it's simplifying it. It's minimizing to maximize that potential. And to me, that's what you're talking about there with, who am I going to be?
Yeah. Yeah. And even talking about complex, like we're always looking for this complex answer.
Mhm.
Even like, and I'll be the first to say it, uh, not so much in sports, but it was more in entrepreneurship, where I was looking for like, there's got to be something more difficult. Like there's a secret somewhere that they're hiding from me.
Sure.
Where's the
Oh yeah.
secret? And then I started realizing there's no secret. It's the same game.
Mhm.
I actually had to go back to being that fighter again and remembering like, Cliff, you put the reps in. That's why you got to where you got, because you just kept putting the reps in.
Mhm.
And so as an entrepreneur, it was like, it's time to get down and dirty and put the entrepreneurial reps in. It's the same exact game.
So take us
You
inside
build it.
how that transition happened. Number one, was it tough to leave the fight game, or were you just ready?
I was definitely ready because I
Yeah.
had my son. I had to make a decision, and I was more focused on not getting hurt than I
Mhm.
was on pursuing what I wanted to pursue. And so that wasn't the hardest part. What made it hard was I didn't know what I was getting into in entrepreneurship,
Mm.
but I'm a stubborn jackass. I mean, there's
Yeah.
no better way to put it than I'm just stubborn and I like to think big. So I would have gone into entrepreneurship one way or another, because
Mhm.
that's just how I kind of roll. Um, but going through that, I'm like, man, like now I can't walk away from it. I want to influence 1 billion lives. And that's just a crazy enough thing for me to say. Like it sounds like it's something like Cliff would say some shit like that. And I realize it. And not only do I say it, it feels good to be able to back it up. Like that feels so damn good when you say something and people say like there's no way, and then you're still able to back it up.
It's funny. I just did an interview with Brian Dawkins, NFL Hall of
Uh-huh.
Famer. Same thing. He wants to influence 1 billion lives, and
Yeah.
the conviction that you guys have when you say it, you know that it's potentially there.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about potential for a second, because obviously you've reached a massive, massive, part of your potential in previous career and whatnot. Um,
Mhm.
I believe in the law of pure potential, which says that, anything and everything on this planet is unlimited if we can tap into it the right way. It's right there waiting
Yeah.
for us. Do you
Yeah.
follow things like law of attraction or manifestation? I mean, I know that you mentioned faith, and a lot of people, some people that like more of the spiritual laws, they won't necessarily talk to faith as much, and vice versa. But really, faith is the ultimate form of manifestation, because you have so much faith that it's just naturally happening, right? It's just
Yeah.
God's gifts that continue to, develop. But do you
Yeah.
follow along with, attraction? I know I see guys like Conor McGregor, and they talk a lot about law of attraction, especially in some of
Yeah.
the older videos. But what do you follow along
Um,
with that space?
I'm really big into it, to the point I'm so big into it that I like looking at the pros and the cons to it. Like it fascinates me,
Mm.
because I look at how people show up, and they look at numbers and percentages and say like, well, if this was so good, then more than 1% would do good at it. And I'm like, that's not really how we work. Like there's a lot of people who are not successful in the gym.
Hmm.
Everybody gets an opportunity to get a gym membership. That's a one gear. Like it probably costs $10 to get a gym membership now. And so no one ever looks at something like that and say, well, only 1% of people are doing good in the gym, so gyms must be faulty. And my whole thing is being a 1%er is an honor, but it's also a responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a responsibility to fucking remind people their potentiality,
Mm-hmm.
and not say like, oh, only 1% can make it there because it's so hard. But to remind people like, look, let's do this. What do you need guidance with? What do you need help with? I'm here to serve you. I'm here to get you to where you need to go. You know, I had training partners and I wanted my training partners to do better than me. I had no place to, and I always wanted to improve my game. And I had one of my clients actually goes, how do you do it? Like, how do you want the same for the person you're competing against for a position? And I go, that's the ultimate form of expression.
Totally.
Yeah. Us to
Totally.
show up as our best and see who's who.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've had multiple teams that have come in and out of my real estate company. And I mean, I was a high performing, realtor when I was just selling, over 100
Mhm.
homes a year. And one of the greatest honors has been when, they've actually left the company to do their own because they had surpassed the level. And I said, as a teacher that, showed up when they were ready, it worked. The things that we've learned along the way that we can pass through, because I think that really, that's what we are. We're pass-throughs of knowledge and information and skill sets. And if we can have an impact on the lives of others,
Yeah.
success is never an issue.
It's so true. And I look back at my original story and I look at that man who left me when I was 4. And I look at the man who came into my life when I was 6. And I say thank you. Thank you to both of them
Mm-hmm.
because they showed me like even in your darkest of darks or your lightest of lights, you still get a choice. You choose how you're going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't show up bitter or angry or hateful. And I'm glad that I didn't. And I also took the time to appreciate the great things that I had going on in my life too. When light came into my life, I had the time to celebrate it and appreciate it and love it and respect it. And so, yeah, and it's the pass on to remind others, hey, you can do the same. Like, I know you're going through some shit. I get it. I understand it. But I got a story for you. Would you like to hear it? And then you tell them your story and they go, I get it. And I'm going to go shine too.
Mm-hmm. That borrowed belief, man.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Absolutely.
I love that. It's it's guys like you and some of the other folks that I get to connect with in this platform. I always take a borrowed belief as far as how to be a little more consistent in spaces, because we can fall off. I mean, we all revert to form at times, but lately
Yeah.
through the last month and what everybody's going on with it, even for myself, it's get more content out there. But if you're getting more content out there, how are you going to show up and all that stuff that leads me back in my path? So I thank you for that.
Yeah.
Tell me what you're doing with the real estate industry, and maybe where you're at with your market. Are you expanding into, multi markets all over? I mean, billion people, you're going to go global. So
Yeah.
what are you doing and how'd you jump in the real estate environment?
Yeah. So I want to help entrepreneurs, and I just filed down a little bit deeper
Yeah.
just to get specific
Yeah.
so that I can dig deep and then go wide.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about real estate, it's tangible. They know like, hey, if I sell this many houses, I get this result. And so if I can help them get the result that they're looking for, and deep down, um, and I know you know this because you've crushed it on your real estate game, but there's always something new and more.
Oh yeah.
When you
Yeah.
stretch, it's like, oh crap, I want something new
Yeah.
and more and different and whole. I want a different experience. I want a different, and so give them what they want to give them what they need. Give them what they want to give them what they need. That's an easy want. I say, I can help you get 12 extra houses.
Sure.
Okay, well, I want to get 12 extra houses. How do you do that? And the truth is, I'm going to change their life forever, because there's
Amen.
so many other deeper, yeah, there's lessons that are so much deeper than that.
Well, and let's look at that for a second too, because 12 houses, that's about 3 times the industry average.
Yeah.
And, the average salary or the average commissions earned for an agent, I think the last stat I saw was 37 grand across North America, market to market. So
Mhm.
when you throw, 12 houses and, about 10,000, per commission on average, you're basically 4xing their income. But like you
Yeah,
said, it's the deeper principles that are really going to help them expand in both business and in their life.
absolutely. Absolutely. So I talk about mind, body, and business. And business is the spirit, you
Mhm.
know? And I know what's cool is I speak with religious, I speak with spiritual, I speak with atheist, and we're all way more the same than we are different.
Totally, totally. Yeah.
But we're really good at picking out our differences. And just how you mentioned to me, uh, when you get to that high and then you're knocked off your perch, like how do you come back from that? Like you
Mhm.
just got knocked out on live TV. How do you come back? Our minds, since it will go into what we focus into. I had one girl, and she was getting in a fight with her boyfriend. And I asked the question, "Are you guys similar in any way?" And he goes, "No, we're complete opposites." I go, "You can't find one way you're similar." She goes, "Not one." I go, "All right, well, you got two eyes, one nose, one mouth, two arms, two legs, and a head."
Mhm.
And then she started coming up with things that they were similar in. You see, when we go into what we focus into, we go into it so much we don't even realize we're doing it.
Totally. Yeah.
And so the second we look at a difference, and we're looking at a difference from a negative angle instead of a positive angle, that opens up and stretches and turns things very dangerous very quickly,
Mhm.
because then you're just going to start looking for reasons why you're different, why it doesn't work, why it's effed up, why it's a problem, why it's an issue. And you're building that muscle bigger and bigger and bigger.
There's some great work that talks to how we change our programming, or some people refer to it as a paradigm.
Mhm.
One's emotional impact, and so an emotional impact would be something like 9/11, where it's instant, and that changes things, usually in a very negative way.
Mhm.
But then there's the dynamic of constant space repetition, or consistency.
Mhm.
Consistency in terms of focusing on positive or negative, it's going to have an outcome. My question to you, because I know that you've got the skill set in this space, with the pandemic and where we are, we've been in 3 lockdowns. I think you guys are a little bit more opened up in Arizona, from what some of
Yeah.
my friends have told me and what you've mentioned. But it's so many people adapted relatively well while others didn't. But for those that did, they didn't let the emotional impact of the initial news of this pandemic get to them. But over time, it's starting to have some wear and tear. It's wearing us down mentally, physically, spiritually. What advice do you give? Is it a consistent way to focus on the positive through it? Or what insight can you share that may help somebody that might
Yeah.
be watching
So
this?
my big thing is responsibility. And responsibility doesn't just mean like figure it out yourself, but
Mhm.
responsibility means, all right, I'm gonna control what I can control, right? I'm not gonna try and control what I can't control. And I'm gonna know the difference between the two. And not only that, I'm going to look towards those who have knowledge and those who have applied knowledge or wisdom. Because applied knowledge means not only do they know the steps, they know the order the steps go into. And so, first and foremost, I tell people, if I can just get them confident, like confidence is the start.
Yep.
And all confidence means is I'm I'm aware that I'm capable. I'm
Mhm.
capable of figuring it out. It doesn't necessarily mean you're competent in it. It just means you're confident that you can figure it out. And so, depending on where your stressors are, because everybody has different stressors, understand where your stressor is, and then figure out ways around the stressor. Like some people may have said, "Holy crap, I can't go to the gym anymore." I'm like, "Well, what did the gym give you?"
Yeah.
Like, I got a good workout in, I would break a sweat. Like, well, you can't do that in your home. Or someone would say, "Holy crap, I can't go outside anymore." I'm like, the truth that you can drive, and even if you can't go outside, can you play into your imagination?
Mm,
See, we don't even really do that anymore
mm.
because we have our Netflix, we have our computers, we have all these devices to keep our dopamine levels up.
Oh,
And it's
totally,
like,
man. Yeah.
yeah, let's just close our eyes and go somewhere. Close your eyes. I remember every now and again I go back to my grandma's place, and she's passed on the other side, rest her soul. But she made this catfish that no one else could make. And even as I'm talking about it, I'm starting to water from the mouth, just thinking about this amazing catfish because it was so good to me. And I can take a moment to close my eyes and just remember that moment, like really embrace and remember that moment and go there when I need to, when I am stressed out, when life is getting very difficult.
Mhm.
So we
So
can
good.
practice into our greatness.
Mhm. It's challenging right now. I always have a hard time observing it. I guess, I try not to judge it, and be more just a witness to it. But I think in any environment, business related right now with technology and the platforms, there's just so much theory out there. There's so much
Yeah.
stuff. You go onto YouTube or Google, how to be a highly successful real estate agent, and you've got so many people teaching it that it's not that they necessarily have needed to do it or do the work, but they often
Yeah.
haven't done anything in the space that's going to create momentum for someone. And so
Yeah.
I would rather take, a mindset transformational training from somebody that's had, a high level of success any day versus the next Facebook ads or, video guru that really hasn't.
Yeah.
And I'm not slighting them because I think there's a place and space for everyone, but everybody is so overwhelmed with information. I mean, I get it too. I like to
Yeah.
do a little bit more with, my coaching, speaking, digital marketing. I go on to Instagram and I'm just smoked with ads on every digital marketing guru, funnel builder, and you just go, what do you look at? What's real? What's not? How do
Yeah.
you differentiate, that when, I guess even in the past, you must have had trainers or coaches or people that you've worked with, some must be much better than others, while others have a pretty strong opinion, but they may not have had any results to back it.
Yeah. So this is a great question. And ultimately, hey, this is because I got love for all of you. You're gonna take your lumps. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. There's no way around it. You're gonna take your lumps. I had a coach who wasn't a good coach for me. Like, it happened. It's
Mhm.
gonna happen. And I learned my lesson. And so I've gotten better and better at vetting who I work with.
Mhm.
And I ask better and better questions because when you get burnt, you get two options. You either learn a lesson and keep moving forward, or you say, "Oh, it doesn't work. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm going to live a normal average life."
Yeah.
I don't want to live average. I don't want to live average. I want to live a big, fulfilled, fun, helping 1 billion people life. And
Mhm.
so to do that, yeah, you're going to get burnt. Like, it would, it's almost like saying, like, Cliff, how do I not lose in a fight ever? Like, I don't have the answer, and I don't think any fighter does because every fighter ends up losing.
Everybody loses at some point.
Yeah. And so if you can just be okay with it, because Ryan, you're 100% right. Like, there's so much noise. There's so much noise, and it's like, how do I know who to trust? And I hate to say the answer is you don't. Like,
Mhm.
you can look at the one thing that I had going for me as I became an entrepreneur, I'm like, thank God they can at least Google me and they know that I am who I am.
Hmm.
Because everyone talks a big game. Like no one ever says like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that for you, I can't do this for you. Like most people are telling you how they can do everything under the sun.
Yeah.
The really good ones though, right? The really good ones, like I even had to learn how to do this because I had a lot of skill sets to provide to the marketplace. And I was almost making it harder because I was stumbling on what I was saying because they only needed one thing. They
Hmm.
didn't need my bag of goodies.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that through repetition myself. You know, I had to learn what people needed and what they didn't. I didn't even realize this was before my fighting career. I didn't think you could get a person to success too quickly. When I was younger, I did not think that was possible. They said they wanted to get here. I can get you there. I could get a person to where they needed to go. And then I realized, holy crap, there's still a game after they get to where they're looking to go. And if you get them to a place too quickly, it is dangerous.
Totally, man. I experienced that, in my own right with sales, when I scaled quick.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible leadership 10 years ago, terrible
Mm-hmm.
leadership with my team where, I just, my ego was out to here. I wasn't paying attention to the signs and signals that, this team needed to be happy. And, even with my clients, I became, too transactional, not paying attention to the signs and signals of my client base. Same thing
Yeah.
as I scaled a real estate company. We had, a period of time where I wasn't aware to what I needed to be. Sure enough, agents leave, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
you have to recognize those clues as far as, how to evolve in leadership or in, high level sales or, entrepreneurship. It's all of it that we have
Yeah.
to be aware of that.
And that I want to give you a major kudos on that to say like it's a process. You know, like I have my failures. I've skinned my knees and I've done all of these things just as you have. And it's like, okay, how do I do it better next time?
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
how do I do it better? And so that's what makes you an amazing leader. The fact that you could be aware enough and look at it and go, I think I can do it better next time.
Hmm. Well, I think it's just crucial, right? I think when we look at the dynamic of you can always evolve and every experience shows up to shape us. It's how do we
Absolutely.
learn, grow, and evolve from each one. And gosh, I've made a lot of mistakes,
Yes.
a lot. But through it, it's am I going to get better? Am I going to stay the same? And I've got a
Yeah.
long ways to go. And I'm sure there will be a couple other misadventures like we all can have. But it's, how do I just keep moving forward? Because our purpose is to always be growing. I think that, like whether it's mentally, whether it's, physically in the right way, whether it's spiritually, our business,
Yeah.
once we stop, we just, we stop. And then
Hmm.
what?
Absolutely.
I think that's
And
part
you
of
know
legacy.
what's so cool? Um, One big lesson that I learned going from an individual fighter, and I did have my team and I did have my coach, but I was in that cage by myself. You
Mhm.
know, when the cage door closed, it was me. And going into entrepreneurship, I did it all on my own. You know, I did it all on my own. And I realized like real quick, I'm like, holy crap, I'm not going to have a family life. I'm not going to have anything if I keep this pace up. And that's where I got some really good mentors on my team. I've met great people like yourself. And it's like, you don't have to do this all on your own.
Mhm.
You don't have to do it by yourself. And it was like taking a metal vest off, just taking it off and feeling free.
Sure.
Because
Sure.
leadership and showing up a certain way, that has pressure to it too. You
Mhm.
know, it has a pressure to it
Oh
too,
yeah.
where you're like, I got to show up like this person. I got to be this person. And it's like, not every time. And if you do it every time, it gets really dangerous very quickly.
Well, I think that there's so much about competition, but then there's, the element of cooperation, right? And
Yeah.
learning to cooperate, even though you can be competitive in nature, because I think that we all like to have a
Oh,
win here and there.
yeah.
Um, so many people in this business are so fearful when they decide to start leveraging to build teams, or even hire admin, and that's ultimately the only way to eventually grow to certain levels, is to leverage, right?
Yeah.
Leveraging technology, human beings, and getting to that point. But there's a fear involved. And so I'm wondering if you could talk to fear for a second, because I can't think of too many, other situations that would be as fearful as, that cage door closes and it's go time
Yeah.
with some pretty, big bad characters.
Yeah.
How do you
So,
how do you navigate that?
man, I love fear. I love it because it keeps us alert and aware. If we use it right, if we use it improperly, then we're stressed out, freaked out, and overwhelmed.
Yeah, sure.
But if we can use it right, and it's like all it's doing is making your body hyper aware
Mhm.
of, okay, what's going on, what's happening, what are we becoming, and it's like, all right, am I breathing properly? Am I thinking properly? Are my wits about me? Do I have my wits about me? What I love about professional fighting is it's got professional in the front of fighting. And fighting's primal, like the most primal thing you can do. Two
Oh yeah.
people going in to knock each other out. But it's also professional too. And you have to have a certain level of professionalism and look at your target and understand your target, understand what they're doing, understand what you're doing, understand how much gas you have in the tank, understand where you lose gas, understand all those little things, understand how am I on the cage, how am I off of the cage, how am I on the mat, how am I off of the mat, how am I when things are getting easy, how am I when things are going my way.
Hmm.
And business is much the same.
Hmm.
It's that same thing. It's a combination of professional fighter, both professional and primal, and saying, who are you going to be and how are you going to show up? And so for fear to me means balance. It lets us know that the balanced will win. If you let it consume you, you're in trouble. And if you don't respect it, you're in trouble. But if you can dance with the balance of fear, it's a powerful, powerful ride.
So good, man. I mean, that even lends well to, I think, a lot of people in business, and whether it's real estate or any kind of business. Pandemic hits, some people shut down, and I get it. Everybody's got their different perspectives, or how they feel about the scenario. But there's a lot of people that adapted, even though that fear existed, adapted and ended up thriving or maintaining, or even going way beyond they ever have, in a very, very
Yeah.
scary situation, because they kept their focus, their balance, and their awareness to what they needed to do in order to keep going.
Hmm.
Mhm. What do you do for motivation and inspiration? What is a day like for you? I mean, I'm always amazed at the ritualistic nature and the discipline of a pro athlete, um,
Yeah.
or a super high performing person in business, but the athletic, and even like you just said, that professional primal part. What do you do to stay focused, motivated, get through some of these situations as well?
Yeah. So I look at um life like, have you ever gone on a hike?
Yeah, I love hiking.
Nice. Have you ever gone on an intense hike?
Uh, I don't know. Sedona intense.
Could be. Yeah.
Camelback
Or
Mountain was a
or
pretty good one for
or
me.
at, Camelback's a good one. Yeah,
Yeah.
Camelback's a good one. And so I look at like I combined our nervous system with how we respond in life. So let me back up and make that make sense. When I start my day, I start it off right. Whether that's warming up with a breathing exercise, whether that's a light cardio, whatever it needs to be, I warm my body up right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do my best to have, I call it a fluid structure, right? Because I want structure, but I also want to be fluid enough to deal with whatever I need to deal with. I got two little ones, and it's
Oh
not
yeah.
always like, and at 9 o'clock we're gonna do this. Like, at least not in my household. Maybe other households are different, and I respect that my household is that way because I do believe adaptability is an important facet to have. And so, going on a hike, if you're sprinting to get to the top, right, you're gonna die. You're
Yeah.
gonna pass out. It's gonna
Yeah.
be too hard. And if you're kind of lollygagging and being overly curious, like you're just like looking under the rocks and then you never make it to the top, right? But if you can balance it where it's like a moment of curiosity and also a moment of when to push and how to push, and also knowing like, okay, if I am pushing in this moment and it's getting a little bit hard, do I have to look towards the top to help me move forward, or do I just have to look at one step at a time,
Mm-hmm.
one step at a time? And the beauty of coaching, what I love about being a coach is different things apply to different people.
Yeah.
So the principles are always the same, but the layers and the levels are going to be different for each person.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people might say like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And some people are like, how do you get better at something? You jump into the deep end right away. So each thing depends on the
Yeah.
individual's story and background and conditionings. And when you can figure out like how that person shows up, then you can establish what is going to work best for them. And so what works best for me is warming up early in the day, right? And intentionally doing at least three things. Like, I only intentionally ever do three things. If I intentionally try and do too much, it's going to burn me out and it's going to make me go crazy. And I'm going to like try and do too many checklists. And if I intentionally just do one thing, it's not enough. It's not moving me in the direction that I need to move into.
So good. So you're placing a high focus on the things that are going to bring you good feelings, and by getting those intentionally dedicated action items done, you're got to be building confidence each and every day, as to build
Yeah.
more onto
Yeah.
if you want to.
Yep. And what's crazy as I've gone through my entrepreneurial journey, um, I noticed, so I have my business coach and I had one of my marketing guys. And they're like, Cliff, you're doing everything perfectly. Like you're doing the right things. And in my head, I'm like, it's not showing up fast enough, right? It's
Mhm.
not showing up in the way that I wanted to show up in. And as I went further into it, I realized like, holy crap, I am doing the right things. Like sometimes we don't even know that we're doing the right things because we're not seeing that instant gratification.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with that, it was and I'm gonna get really deep with people here because I think it's the right thing to do. It stretched my marriage. Like it's not always easy.
Hmm.
It's not glitz and glamour where you say like, and we just trumped through it and everything went perfect because we believed. Like, no, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard until it's easy. And sometimes people don't remember all of those other pieces, but it's like you have to be aware of so many things, being married, having kids, doing all of those things. And you can't say like, I need to do this for the business. It's like, okay, what is more important in that time right now? Like we're spinning plates. We're spinning all of these plates and we got to figure out which ones to spin and which ones we let drop
Hmm.
and which ones just are kind of a non-importance. And so I bring all of this up because even when you're doing it right, it's still hard. It's meant to be hard. It's meant to be hard. It is a challenge. And that's why that support is such an important piece. It helps you get to that promised land you're looking to get to. Because
Hmm.
when you can have a coach or a mentor say, just keep moving.
Yeah.
I've seen this part of the story. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing it right. Or I've seen this part of the story, and you need to back up because you're
Yeah.
doing it wrong. You're about to smack into something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Totally makes sense. I think that having some form of accountability or coaching is crucial. I always will, no matter what. I'll move to different forms of coaching or accountability, but look at the greatest, performers, whether it's in acting, athletics, sports, anything. They've all got somebody that's, helping them, improve and level up. So take us inside of, a little bit more about your program that, may support, the real estate industry, and maybe let us know where they can find you for that. Because my understanding of it is that it's almost unprecedented, really, when you look at the dynamic of you will allow somebody to buy in, but they're not going to be buying in fully until you're helping them get results. Am I clear on that?
Yes, 100%.
Sweet.
Yeah. So I want to create win-win scenarios and situations, and I explain how to create that. Ultimately, the best way they can reach me is at cliffordstarks1@gmail.com. I also have cliff@mindbodymentoring.com. And you can also catch me on Facebook Messenger. Like, that's one of my go-tos. Probably don't want to Instagram me because I'm not on that much. So,
Okay.
and the other piece, so the way the program is built out is I have a foundation piece, and we just lay the foundation, and we clean up whatever debris you might have had in your foundation before, because I'm sure everybody has it. And then we go into the blueprint, and we figure out, all right, we're going to create a plan that helps you move forward.
Mhm.
And what's so cool about plan creation is it's not just me and them creating the plan, it's the team creating a plan. Because when you create a plan together, everybody has their hand in that plan. And when they have their hand in the plan, the right people, of course, it's
Sure.
more inclined to go to plan. From the third stage, we go into the build, and we just start building. We start taking care of business, and we start taking the actions that we need to take. And then from there, we go into leverage. And leverage is what we're doing right here, having a moment to spread the message to the right people in the right way, so that your people can hear you and they know that you're there to serve them. And then the fifth is momentum. When you're firing on all cylinders, then you want to push the accelerator. And so that's where the momentum comes in, just to go fast, and fast in a cautious way, of course. We're not going to run into anything, but fast in a way where we're moving and we're enjoying the movement that we're having.
I love it, man. It's great. I think that
Yeah.
the industry, after all the years I've been in it, the industry needs more people like you. And I'm sure that every industry out there, can use, your skill set, mindset, and the gifts that you bring to the table. So I'm super happy for you and, what you continue to do. I will make sure that I post all of your information, on all of the channels that, the Rise Up interviews go. But it's been an honor, man, to have you here and
It was a
connect and
pleasure.
engage, man, for sure. I look forward to seeing more and more of what you do, and super blessed to have had the opportunity to chat tonight. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your amazing questions. You're a great interviewer, and that's fun to me. When I get the time to really think through the question and give my insight on it. So respect and kudos. Thank you.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Well, we'll connect real soon. And for everybody else, stay tuned for more interviews. Again, I will post all of Clifford Starks' information on how you can reach out to him and how you can continue to rise up in your business and in your life. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you real soon.